The next person I'd like to introduce is Kelly Grill, who is a caregiver to her sister, who was part of our pilot study. And Kelly has been really incredible in helping us to think more deeply about caregiver needs with this population. And she was an incredible part of her sister's team. So, Kelly, welcome.
Good morning. I'm really honored to be here today, and I know my sister would be very happy that I was here today. So my sister Kara truly was the kindest, most loving, most wonderful person I knew. We were very fortunate as sisters to also be best friends. I know that's not always the case, but we certainly were quite fortunate to have that. We also had a very unusual relationship. I'm quite serious when I say that we never fought, not once. She was my biggest cheerleader, my biggest fan. She was the person in my life that saw the best in me and wanted the best for me, and I felt the same way about her. She was 48 years old and was diagnosed with non-small cell lung cancer with an EGFR mutation, stage 4, and it had spread to her brain and her bones. Kara was also the most healthy person I knew, fit. She worked for the Boston Athletic Association. Her role was as registrar for the athletes with disabilities. She never smoked, never drank, quite boring for me. And so this was a shocking diagnosis for all of us. It came out of the blue, but I've come to learn that that was not so shocking, that the largest percentage of this kind of cancer is actually in women in their 40s, as you all know, without a history of smoking. And so the day that we heard, it happened to be on 9/11, ironically enough, but the day that we heard about this diagnosis, it wasn't the cancer or her diagnosis that was the first worry in my head. The first worry that I had was how she was going to handle it with her level of anxiety. And what was interesting about that was we never talked about it. We were that family who grew up with anxiety, depression, alcoholism, all sorts of things in our family, but never talked about it. We were fine. Everything was fine. And Kara, specifically, over the years, had called me, sometimes late at night, sometimes just on a regular sunny day, and would say, I need you to come over. I can't get up. I am feeling faint. She couldn't get off the bathroom floor. She was having trouble breathing. And she said, I think I'm just dehydrated. I think it's this. I think it's that. And then after a number of times of that happening, I said, I think this is a panic attack. And I think maybe you should talk to somebody. Oh, no. I just need to eat better and do all these sort of things. So when I heard about the diagnosis, I said, that was my first thought, was, how is she going to manage this with the level of anxiety that she has on a regular basis? Kara also had suffered a tragic loss 10 years prior. Her husband took his own life when her daughters were 2 and 4. And that also was a time where we as a family rallied around, but she showed her tremendous strength at that time, even with her level of anxiety and with anyone's level of anxiety facing that. She put her girls first and said, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to take care of these girls. And that's exactly what happened when she received her cancer diagnosis. So on that day, I looked at her and I said, okay, I'm going to move in. And she said, good. And that was the end of the discussion. There wasn't any more discussion after that. It wasn't why I'm going to move in. It wasn't, how we're going to handle this. Good, and that was it. So we just happened upon, in what I know was certainly not an error of fate, but when we came to MGH for our second opinion, we had a doctor that we were seeing, and just by chance, that doctor wasn't available. And I so remember the person behind the desk coming, saying, I apologize, this doctor's not available, but I have to tell you that just by chance, Dr. Sequist is available, and she is the leading doctor in the world for your sister's particular kind of cancer. And so we knew at that moment everything was going to be okay. And she certainly was, she and her team with Dr. Meridian were just the most amazing people to have on our side. She started radiation and right away, and then we were looking at what treatment to have after that. But during the radiation, I noticed something happening slowly but very, very surely. She wasn't herself, and things were getting more and more aggravated, and but in a positive sense. Just before we started radiation, the two of us, I remember, had our coffee and we're sitting out on the porch, and her answer, to this diagnosis was, I'm going to beat it. Like I heard earlier, I'm going to beat it. I'm going to have hope, and I'm going to beat it. So as we're sitting there on the porch, we made a decision. We said, we're going to stand in the light and lean toward joy. And that was our mantra for the entire time that she went through treatment of this. So when she started radiation and had to have steroids to combat the obvious side effects of it, I noticed that she was getting more and more positive, and the experience started to get overwhelming for me, and I said, something's not right here. And I would be calling Dr. Meridian and calling Dr. Sequist and says, this isn't right. Positive is positive, but this is not right. I believe this might be a manic episode. And we tried this and we tried that, and I think it went for a month. And then the skies opened up, and I was introduced to Kelly Irwin and Amy and her team, and sat down with them. And it was the first time since it started, I think it was maybe a month and a half in, that I had someone that said, oh yeah, that is what it is, and we have something that can help you with that. And I felt validated, and everything changed, and we were able to change the medication and manage her anxiety. So from that point, things got better. Things were manageable and got better. We went on afatinib, and it was working for a little while. But one of the other major things with my sister's anxiety was her fear that the side effects of the treatment were going to be worse than the benefits. And as the caregiver and being there, I could see that there was many times when I felt very strongly that this isn't the medication. This, you're feeling nauseous, or you're feeling overwhelmed, or even, some of the other more standard, like, diarrhea or vomiting or things. This isn't the medication. I think this is something else. This feels like your anxiety. And that was the first fight we had. The very first one, where she said, no, you're not right. And I said, I think I am. And so we went in and again talked to Dr. Irwin and her team, said, oh, well, of course, that could be. So again, we were able to adjust it. Now, the other major issue for, I think, families with patients who have severe mental illness is supporting those families. I felt very alone in my amazing, wonderful, incredible family. Because we were the family that didn't talk about mental illness, there had to be another reason why all this was happening. So one of the best pieces to the trial that I would have loved to see more of were the times we could come in as a family and speak to Kelly and her team, and to get that validation, and to have some answers and some concrete tools of how do we deal with this, especially when it came to end of life. Because she never was able to accept it. And I came to accept that was her journey. She needed to do that for herself. She needed to be able to be positive right in the end. She was not going to leave her girls. She simply was not going to do it. And she could not face it with her mental illness. She simply couldn't. And that was okay, because that was what she needed to do for herself. But what I learned is that for her girls and for my family and for ourselves, that we needed to have a conversation about what the end of life was going to look like, and how we were going to honor her, how we were going to stand in the light for her and lean toward joy, all during that piece of this cancer treatment. Hindsight, of course, is 20/20, and you never know, when that day is going to come. But now, I actually just had a conversation with Kara's daughter. Kara passed away in June of 2017, about 18 months since the beginning of her diagnosis. And yesterday, I took her 16-year-old daughter, actually, down to get a tattoo. And we had to go to Connecticut because they don't allow that in Massachusetts. And my sister is furious with me right now because there is no way she would have let her have a tattoo. But what she decided to do, she wanted to have something that reminded her of her mother. And so she has it right here, right on her wrist. And it is actually a penny because of pennies from heaven. She believes that after her mother passed away, and I do too, that we saw lots of pennies. So this is her reminder of her mother. But as we were coming back from that wonderful experience, I asked her, so, tell me what would have been better for you, through this whole thing. We did the best we could. We tried to be as open and honest as we could, but clearly, we made some mistakes. What would have been better for you? And the one thing she said, I wish I was a part of it more. She said, I think Mom tried to protect me. She didn't want to hurt me. She didn't want me to know. She said, but MGH and all of those things, it seemed like a big, clean, white building that I wasn't allowed in. And I said, yeah, that's probably very true. I can understand why you feel that way. And she said, because I think that everything that I heard from you and from Mom was at this warm, wonderful place and these incredible doctors. She's like, I want to know, did they have kids? I want to know, did they like to sing or dance or paint or, who were they, these people that took such good care of my mom? So that was a lesson for me. I am now have the honor of raising my sister's daughters. One thing I know that I can do, just like everyone in this team does, is be their biggest cheerleaders and their biggest fans, see the best in them and want the best for them. And what I want the best for them and their generation is, I know they have mental health issues. We'll be talking about it. Thank you.